Hello, this is Nati from Information World, and you're welcome back to PHP Tutorials for Beginners. And in today's lesson, we are going to talk about data types and then variables. Okay, now data types. Let's first treat data types. Data types. Data types is basically the classifications of data into a category according to its attributes. So it's the classifications of data according to its attributes of data. According to its attributes. Yeah. So when we say attributes, I want to just let's maybe four of them and then you try to understand how it means. On your keyboard, you have some parts, and I want to talk about the alphanumeric keys. So on the alphanumeric keys, every key on the alphanumeric key is classified as a string. So one example of a data type is a string. And all alphanumeric keys are classified to be all alphanumeric characters are classified to be string. So let's talk about some examples. So example, we have information world. Information world is a string. So in other words, you can say strings are words. You can just say they are words. Now let's move to the next data type I want to talk about. The next one is integer. So integers, they are just whole numbers. So example of an integer is you all know that 1, 2, yeah, 8, blah blah blah. So these are examples of an integer. Integers are basically whole numbers. Okay, now let's move on. Now this brings us to the next one. What about decimal point? Numbers which contains decimal point. They are also classified to be under floating. So floating point or values are basically numbers with what? Numbers with decimal points. Sorry. Numbers with decimal points. Example 5.3, 65.9. You see? 2.0. They are all examples of floating point. Okay, now I'd like to talk about the last one here. The last one is Boolean. So Boolean, they are basically two values. If it is not that, it is this. If it is not a male, it is a female. If it is not up, it is down. If it is not left, it is right. So basically, Booleans are true or false values. Yeah, true or false values. Those are Boolean. So we initially said data types are classifications of data according to its attributes, and then we talked about these four types of data, and he said strings are alphanumeric, Integers are whole numbers. Floating points are numbers with decimal points. And then Boolean as true or false. So PHP is a loosely typed language. It means we don't explicitly define our data types. We don't define our data types, and then PHP determines each data type by analyzing the attributes of the data supply. That will send us to the next topic, which is variables. Variables, let me write them in all caps. Variables. We said you're going to treat data types and then variables. So with variables, you'll be able to understand data types very well. Data types very well. So what is a variable? A variable is a name given to a memory allocation that stores data at runtime. So whenever you execute your program, the space or the memory allocation given to store data is referred to as a variable. So think of it more like a room built to accommodate guests. So during runtime, we have a space allocated for values or for data. Okay. And those data are used to determine the data type of the variable. So PHP in PHP, we say that all variables must start with the $sign. So all variables must start with $sign. So this is a $sign. This is a $sign. Up you see down there. So if I want to declare a variable, I just say $sign my variable, something like this. And mind you, I want to talk about some characteristics of the variables in PHP. PHP variable names are very case sensitive. So that means my variable, it is not equal to my variable is not equal to my, although you read the same thing, my var, it doesn't mean they are equal. It is not case sensitive. It is never case sensitive. That's one attribute. And then every variable must start with a letter. Every variable must start with a letter that follows other characters. So you can have a variable like second variable, and you can have this second variable. This is a wrong way of declaring a variable. This is a wrong way of doing so. So every variable should start with a letter. And of course, we have special characters which you can use, like $sign. The $sign is used to identify variables, but you can use the $sign to name a variable. Okay. So, as I said earlier on, I said variables are more like a container that gives or a memory allocation given to data at runtime. So let's open our Sublime test, and I want to save something here. Desktop. So PHP tuts. Just want to have it all. So let's say, sorry, hello, sorry. You have to go to our htdocs. Sorry. You have to go to our htdocs and then get to our XAMPP. Remember earlier on we said all PHP files must be in our htdocs. That's where the server is. So let's get to my first PHP script and then store this one as maybe index variables.php. So we have this. We want to test some variables here. And we said you have to open your PHP tag, right? PHP, and have your closing PHP tag, or else it will never work for you. So I will have a variable. I'll name it mine var, and then I'll assign it to a string like information world. Remember to always terminate your variable. You want to have this here, and then print it out. So I want to print my variable. Let's execute this one. So we are saying that during runtime, we have this memory allocation here called my var, and has a value of information world, and this makes it a string. Information world. So now let's run it. And before that, we have to open our server and then run it in our browser. So you click on start on the Apache and start on MySQL. That's how you start your server. So now let's move on. Localhost. Remember I said my port is 81. Yours by default will be localhost. So if you have localhost, that's fine. But this is how I access my port. Have my port 80 used by another application. So if you have this, it is fine. It will work for you. So this slash my first, I don't remember that. My first PHP, is that correct? My first PHP script. Then I have the file called variable.php. No, as variables, sorry. Variables PHP. Yeah, I have it here. My first. So you see, whenever you have a wrong URL, the error that you have is object not found. So that means the file here, the file directory that you've inputted here cannot be found on the server. So requested URL is not found on the server. It's not found on the server. So if you entered manually, please check your spelling and then try again. It's very easy as ABC. So of localhost, I have variables, yeah. So I have information world here. So remember, I never echoed information world, I just echoed the variable. So at runtime, the variable was analyzed and we found out that the variable contains a value of information world. So this makes our variable a string. So the data type of this variable is a string. So basically, this is what you're doing today. Now let's test the next one. The next variable that you want to test, you want to have a data type of an integer. So let's say integer is equal to, remember you said integers are whole numbers. Integers are whole numbers. So let's say integer is equal to 2500, and then we have this here. So when I refresh my page, I have 2500 and it's an integer. So difference between integer and a string is that with a string we have a quotation mark, a quotation at both sides. That makes it a string. By integer, we don't have any string here. We don't have any quotation marks. So that's one very vital thing that you have to take into consideration when you are trying to determine the data type of a variable. So I have this here. I want to convert it to a string. So this is now a string. This is a string and this is an integer. This is an integer and this is a string. So with an integer, you can have some calculations with it, but with a string, you can't calculate anything with it. It has to be converted to an integer before you can make some calculations with it. So this, although when you output, you have the same value, this is a string and this is an integer. Okay. So you can try on the others. You can try on the other data types, which is floating, which has what? Numbers with decimal points, and then the Boolean. Okay, so thank you very much. I am Natty once again for Information World. If you like this video, please like, and then with any question, comment down below. With any suggestion, you can also comment down below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you've not subscribed to our channel yet. And thank you. See you in the next tutorial.